Hello, everyone. This is your host, Kerie Logan at Master the Upper Rooms. And I am so excited to be talking with Jennifer today. And why I'm excited to talk to her is her podcast is the name of one of my websites, Empowered Within. And what I want to share really quickly before I bring her in is, I always talk about human consciousness. And if I was stuck in 3D human consciousness, I'd be mad at her. I'd be jealous and envious, and I'd be like, you stole my name. But I'm not. I am so grateful and so joyful and ecstatic to talk to her today because she's doing wonderful things for humanity and this world. And what was so cool when we were talking before I hit record, God gave her that name. And God gave me that name for my website over 20 years ago. So we're going to dive in and learn all about Jennifer today. And I'm just over the moon. You can see I'm just like about to jump out of my seat and go, yay, yay, yay. So, Jennifer, welcome to Master the Upper Rooms.
Thank you so much for having me, Kerie. I'm so excited finally after all these years our paths have crossed and we're here together.
Yes, it's so cool. So, tell me about yourself.
So, oh my gosh, like that's such a
I
loaded
know, loaded
question.
question.
Well, like you, I have been doing my practice for, gosh, it's 25 plus years now. Someone said that's 2 decades. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So for 2 decades, I've been in the holistic practice industry, from rehabilitative Pilates to Reiki healing to in being an intuitive medium, all of the things. And one thing has come into another and into another. And the beauty of it all is truly being able to help people transform from within and to
Yes.
find their empowerment within. I'm not here to give it to you. I'm here to light you up so that you can feel what's within you. And to me, that is one of the best gifts of all. And so, whether that comes through Pilates training, whether that comes through spiritual coaching, whether that's mindset, whether that's Reiki, whether that's a reading, it's just that it comes through. And that is so important, to be of service and to be able to help so many people and to have been given the gifts and the ability to help on so many different levels, which have come over the 25 years. It
Yeah.
all started with my Pilates practice many, many moons ago. And everything has just expanded since then. So I'm very blessed. And then expanded into the podcast, which we were just talking about was going to be 4 years old. I can't even believe it, in May, which
Wow.
is so amazing. I know, so amazing. So I feel so grateful every day and so blessed to be able to show up and help people through various platforms like yourself, whether that's podcasting or YouTube or all this stuff. It's just, that's what I live for.
Yes. And I think it's really interesting how getting those intuitive hits, because it never came to my awareness to do a podcast for Empowered Within. It never did. I created a YouTube channel, for Empowered Within, but I never thought of a podcast. And I love when people get intuitive hits, and how you're being called to be of service. And a lot of people can be kind of confused, like, well, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. But when you get that intuitive hit, it's, to me, it's like the cherry on top. It really is. And you're being called by something higher than you. You're not questioning it, you're not doubting it, you're not dismissing it. So maybe to help some people understand, when you started getting intuitive hits, how was that for you? Like, was it weird? I mean, like, tell me your journey on that.
So, well, it started very young for me. So, being an empath, and having kind of grown up in sort of a tumultuous situation, I always just sort of knew things. People didn't necessarily listen to me, but I had a lot to say. And I can remember, you can go back to like being a little kid with my report cards, and what was always said about me: she talks too much, she talks too much. And I always say, well, if people would have listened, probably a lot of lives would be different these days.
Yeah.
So, subtle things, right? Like I just didn't, there's a beauty in being naive before you understand your spiritual journey.
Yes.
So I would say at some point, I really just, oh, like take a right turn. Okay, take a right turn. Oh, look what I found down this road. Or it was just very easy. And I would say there are times before I knew or before I was who I am today that I was probably even way more spiritual or way more open
Yeah.
than I am today in different ways and in different facets. And that's what I find when I look back over the journey to be so incredible. Now it is like signs are everywhere. And now it's about discerning, well, what sign has weight
Yes.
and what is just sort of something that's coming by, especially right now, two retrogrades, in between two eclipses. Like this is not a time for answers. So this is a huge journaling time. Write down all the signs. And then in another 2, 3 weeks, what still has weight? What is still there? And so there's that learning curve over the years. I love it though. It starts out with little things and little things become big hits. And, like getting back to the podcast, I happened to be working with Tony Robbins at the time. We were doing intense 3 days work, 4 days work. I forget. It was very intense. And it literally broke me down. But it broke me down to the place to find my empowered self within. And
Yes.
that's literally how the to give like that was huge. I didn't even know what a podcast was, by the way. I had never even listened to a podcast. I was told I was going to do a podcast. I was told the name. I was able to buy a microphone, and then I was told, let it sit. It's not the time yet. And I was caretaking for family. And it's all sat there for like 6 months.
Wow.
So it's just beautiful when you can lean in or be aware. Or like last winter, I was in South Carolina and I'd met these lovely neighbors, and they knew that I taught Pilates and that I really wasn't doing it. I was just doing my virtual training with clients. And then one day the woman came over. She said, "Can we have a cup of tea?" Okay, that's odd. I never have someone like in my home, but okay. And she looked at me and she goes, "So when are you going to start working at the YMCA here?" And I was like, I mean, you couldn't have hit me over the head harder if you wanted. I heard the message and I was like, well, I guess I'll walk over tomorrow and kind of check it out. And lo and behold, that's where I was needed. I was needed to help
Right.
them change their program. I was there for a period of time and then I exited,
Yeah.
and I think that when we're able to understand who we are, meaning who are you? Why are you here? What is your numerology? What is your human design? What is your mission? When you know that, then you can really embrace it and you can be more in the flow than getting caught up and tripped up in the 3D world, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. Because my kiddo who's 17, he always talks about signs, and he'll see like numbers 333 or 1212 or 1111, and he'll look it up. And I find it so cool. And he's learning how to listen to his intuitive hits. And I gotta say this. I mean, I wish my mom was that way. And my mom did have a spiritual background, but where we're at now in our world, really listening to those intuitive hits are amazing. Because the same for me. One day I was told, by up above, that you're going to start a podcast and you're going to teach master the upper rooms and you're going to teach human consciousness. And like they said to me, we want you to create these images. Literally make a whole, 3 different pages of this is 3D human consciousness, this is 4D, this is 5D, and we want you to do this. And it's really cool when you get that calling. And at times, some people, we can fight it, and other times we have to learn to honor it and respect it. Because for me, and I made a YouTube video about how I became a hypnotherapist. And when I was about to become homeless with my daughter that was in kindergarten at the time, I was told that no, you're going to move back to California. The perfect job is waiting there for you. It's what you are meant to do, born to do. It's waiting there. And like a lot of people, I didn't want to listen. I was stuck in fear, but I had to get over it. And I did. And here I am today. If I did not make that choice and listen to that guidance, my life would be completely different,
Mm-hmm.
completely different. And so it's really learning how to trust and surrender to what you're hearing. And sometimes, like, even if you're in a really bad toxic relationship and you calm down and you're talking to God, you will be guided out of that situation, and maybe what you need to, I was in a situation, I remember, with my daughter and her father with all the legal stuff, and I was about to, you know I could lose custody of her. And I was fighting, fighting, fighting. And that night, as I was praying, I completely surrendered everything and saw myself jump into the void. And I was just like, just take me. You know the highest and the best. And the very next day, he called me up and said, I've been trying for weeks to talk to you about this. I don't want to fight anymore. And I am willing to stop hurting you and her if you give up the child support. That's all he wanted. I will waive all my parental rights and do this. And I thought to myself, there is no price tag on my daughter. None. And I willingly did it. I said yes. And that was the answer I needed. And I had to let go my control and anger and wanting to prove him wrong and wanting to fight. I had to completely surrender and rise all the way up to neutrality, to where I could just be content and satisfied. And in that space, the answer came up. And it was, it can be fast. As you know, we can get like hits like that.
Oh, I love the ones. I love that you just said this. So earlier today, before the podcast, I was upstairs and I was looking for a top. And I was in my closet. I'm like, God, I'm like, is it packed? Is it not? And I heard like, it's not there. It's in the dresser. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, who am I to judge? Like I'm questioning spirit.
Yeah.
So then I go over and I go, oh, look, you're right. It was here. And I go, how come spirit, you can give me this tank top like this, but the other questions I'm asking for right now, oh, no, 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 nope, nope. That could be another 12 months, Jennifer. We don't know. That could be another month or two. I had to have a joke and go, how funny that like I asked for that and you gave me that. But if it's something that that's bigger, and I think that goes back to divine timing, and it goes back to
Yes.
not rushing your timing of life. So you have a timing of life, and then there's divine timing. And you find out and you learn more about your lifetime, your timing of life, when you understand going back to who are you again and why are you here and what is your mission, on this school earth here that we're learning. Because, again, this is one of the planets that like you're a badass, especially if you're here right now in this time. Like you didn't get here by accident. You chose to be here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now you have to understand, like, well, why are you here? And really level up for that. And I think that that's one thing that, we all can go back and forth with and have moments, because I think sometimes people think like, oh, I was teased like I have a big life-size unicorn. And I'm like, yes, like I need that. But let me tell you, I know my dark equally as I know my light. And that's what's most important. Like I have been through so much darkness to be able to, yes, embrace my unicorn, but I dare you to cross my path at the same time. Because just because you're a spiritual person and just because you want to ride a unicorn doesn't mean that you're not going to kick some serious butt along the way when lines are crossed. And I think that that's something that needs to be spoken about, that needs to be educated, especially with empaths and highly sensitive people who are people pleasers, who don't understand
Yes.
healthy boundaries, who need to learn healthy boundaries, and that that's okay. And that if someone crosses that healthy boundary, it's okay to say, no, that's not okay. And that again goes back to wanting to help and empower people, because everyone has it within themselves. It's just tapping into it.
No, 100%. Because my kiddo, we were watching something and he was talking about what was going on in the world, and he was just like scared. And I said to him, just like what you did, you chose to come in at this time. And you knew there would be great chaos. But great chaos can create great change because there's structures that will collapse. So new ones, better ones can be rebuilt, or you reorganize the structure. But you're here for a purpose and a reason, and it's like you got to get out of that victim mindset of, the world is just horrible. And I said, change your focus on something good is going to come out of this. I don't know what it is, but something good
Mhm.
is going to be born and created out of this. And I
Absolutely.
and I and I loved it too how you were talking about the intuitive hits, because my daughter would tease me up and down. I think she's like 27 right now. And when she would miss an item, she'd be like, "Mom, where is it?" And I would listen, and they would show me sometimes in my mind's eye, "Oh, it's upstairs in this drawer," and da 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 da. And she'd go up. She's like, "How do you know that? How?" And I'm just like, "Because they just told me, and they just showed me where it is." And it's hard. So when someone knows you can do that, they'll they'll constantly be like, "Okay, where's my keys? Where'd I put
Mhm.
this?" And I think sometimes it's hilarious.
It is hilarious, and that's the thing. Like, we need to have more hilariousness in our everyday. One of the things I do every day is I'm like, in the mornings, I go through my meditative practice and I really, set myself up before I even interact with any human beings. And one of the things I always say in the morning and at night, in the morning, I'm like, I'm so excited for all the amazing things that are going to happen today.
Yeah.
And then at night, I say, I'm, grateful for all of X, Y, and Z that happened. And then I repeat, I'm so excited for the amazing things that are going to happen tomorrow. And let me tell you, when you do that and you get into a practice,
Yep.
it really, you're beginning to work with your subconscious mind and you bring good things in. Like last night I sat down and I went, wow, I'm like, there actually were a couple of good, cool, amazing things that happened. Um, I'm not saying $1 million is dropping out of the sky because it's not going to happen. If you're not vibrating at that level, if you're not magnetized at that same place, it's not going to be there. But it doesn't mean that you can't win $100 off a lottery ticket. And if that's what you win, then I want you to like dance up and down and be super excited because you have probably a higher vibration than you even thought. And considering the people or places and things around you, it's a struggle some days to keep your vibration up. I don't know about you, but me, like I'm a pretty introverted person. People think I'm extroverted, and it may seem that way, but I'm a homebody. I love to be at
Oh,
home. I love to
yep.
be on the beach, walking. Like I just like to I don't want to say be by myself because I'm never by myself because even when I'm walking, spirit is with me
Yes.
and all my guides and angels are there and we're having our meeting and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm never alone, but to the outside world, it probably appears that way. Like I remember a friend once said to me, and she was miserable in her marriage and just unhappy. It was just not good. And she had a lash out moment and she was like, wow, what do you want me to be? Alone like you? And I'm thinking, you know what? It probably would do you some good. Now, being the good friend that I was in that moment in time and reading the room, I said nothing. But you know what else? I also never spoke to that friend again because I realized at that moment in time there was so much envy and jealous. There was nothing I could do, right? This had been going on for years. She needed to walk that muck and maybe she'll walk out of it and walk back into my life. But for now, I did all I could do in that part. And I think that that's something too, when you're on your spiritual path to understand it's okay to let people go and
Yes.
it's okay to let new people in
Yes.
and it's okay to walk away. And that is a challenge, especially if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person who again, you're a people pleaser, you're wanting to see the best, you've got those rose colored glasses on, and you need to have discernment and need to understand that, oh, okay, yeah, this isn't feeling so great anymore, it's not feeling in alignment, then it's probably not in alignment. And if it's not in alignment, who's shifting? And does it matter? You just need to shift where you're being called to shift.
Yes. And it's also learning to honor and stand up for yourself, because being alone is not a negative thing. It can be a completely beautiful thing. I mean, you're going to laugh at this, but there was many periods in my life when I was single. I would not date for like 2 years or something, and people thought I was nuts. And I had one friend when I was a single mom that she had men coming in, revolving door, revolving door. And her daughter, one time, we were having dinner. She said, I know when a man's going to leave my mommy. And I said, when? When do you know? And she said, when he says he's going to get a job because he never comes back.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's a powerful statement.
It is because she had men revolving in and out and in and out. And I told her, I said, what example are you setting for your daughter? And I remember one time my little girl said to me, Mommy, I want a daddy. I want a daddy. Go out and get me a daddy. And I told her, I said, well, sweetie, I could go out right now and get you a daddy. No problem at all. But might not be nice to me and he might not be kind to you. And we'd be miserable instead of happy right now. Would you rather I take my time and find the right daddy for you? Wouldn't that, the right daddy for us? Wouldn't that be better? And she thought about it and she said, yes, 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 yes. So then a month later, she comes up to me and she says, Mommy, I'm tired of waiting for a daddy. Can you go get me a baby brother or sister?
Oh, that's hysterical.
It was hysterical. And I want to share this other one when you were talking about, the woman's perspective of, oh, I'll be alone like you, which in her mind was a negative. I remember one time being at the gym and my son was probably maybe 5 years old at the time. And I was a single mom. And this man came up to me and, said, your son is so cute and everything. He was just like, does your husband come work out with you? And I said, no, I'm a single mom. And he immediately, his face dropped and he said, oh, I'm sorry for you. And I looked at him and I said, actually, you shouldn't be sorry at all because I am so joyful and so happy and free because he was not a nice person. And so I would rather be single and
Mhm.
joyful than be with someone that, ended up not being, nice to me and my kiddo in the end. And the guy immediately just like was like, shut up and walked away. Because it's
Right.
like, if you're going to throw this at me, I'm going to throw some truth back at you. My situation isn't as doom or gloom as you perceive it to be.
And that goes back to, your path, your mission, your journey, that's yours.
Yes.
And not everyone, if anyone, is going to understand it and or agree with it because it wasn't given to them. And that even goes back to, if you are looking for a job, a baby daddy, maybe a baby mommy, whatever it is, a house, whatever, keep it close to your heart because not everyone is your cheerleader. And I have learned that over the years, accidentally and purposefully. And it truly is, get married behind closed doors, be happy behind closed. You complete everything you want to do, and then when you're ready, then you let people know, or then you invite them out when you're good, when you have a solid foundation, when you,
Yes.
again, feel empowered within, then you allow people in. Because, and especially now, you know, again, not everyone is your cheerleader. Not even, unfortunately, not your family, not your friends, not your coworkers.
Not even your spouse, because I'll
Mm-mm.
share a story about that. There was a woman I was working with that had a high executive job at a major hospital, and she would drink 2 bottles of wine a night, and she wanted to stop. And in her process of that, I told her, I want you to keep it a secret. I don't know why I was guided to tell her that, but I want you to keep this a secret because there might be a day that's going to happen. And it's kind of like I was picking up on it of you've got to own it. You've got to own this new change and you got to set boundaries around it and own it. So what happened, she stopped drinking And it was, I think, about a month and a half after that period, her husband came up to her and said, "Hey, I noticed you're not drinking anymore. Did you join AA? What'd you do?" And she said, "I did hypnotherapy." And he started laughing in her face. Laughing, laughing. "You're stupid. Oh my God, I can't believe you wasted your money on that. How much did that cost you? This is such a joke." She started bawling and crying, and he was laughing even more. And she told me, "I
Hmm.
thought of that warning you gave me. And I walked out of that room, and trust me, Kerie, I wanted to drink so bad, but I wasn't going to do it because then he would win and try to destroy me." And I remembered what you said. I need to stay empowered within. I need to believe in myself. And so yes, you are exactly right. Even people that you think would support you, sometimes they don't. You got to be
No.
really mindful who you share stuff with. That's why, like, I've interviewed many people that have said, "Oh, I just came out of the spiritual closet. I had this intuitive gift for so many years, and I couldn't tell my family about this or some of my friends about this, and I said, "But that's the beautiful thing is you're out."
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And there's still so many people, that aren't. And, you know, use your spiritual gifts however you are divinely guided. You don't need to have a flashing sign on a corner and be a psychic.
Yes.
You can work in a grocery store as a cashier and you can smile at people, and your healing energy is healing every person that comes through your line.
Yes, and I would say be, sometimes a little cautious about that flashing light on the corner, because there was, when I was living in a certain, town here in Oregon, there was a person that put a sign up that said she was a psychic therapist. And so I wanted to welcome her to the community, and I came in, and she was a charlatan, complete charlatan. And I ended up talking to some other friends that were legit, had a spiritual center, and they told me, "Oh man, that woman, she knows how to influence people. She got like $3,000 from this one woman saying she was cursed. I can break the curse." and
Mm-hmm.
and it was crazy. And that's where, and I even do have some recordings about psychic hotlines, because I had one lady literally spend $1,000 a month talking to a psychic person. I was like, "She is not your friend. You're
Mm-hmm.
paying her. If it was a friend, she wouldn't take your money."
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you do. You have to certainly. I am incredibly careful as to what energy and who I let into my inner circle, whether that's even an acupuncturist, a chiropractor, a massage therapist.
Yep.
Very, very careful because their energy, those are very sensual practices. And people don't look at
Yes.
it that way, but their energy then mixes with your energy. And when you
Yep.
walk out of that room, you've got to discern and clear and do all that stuff. So I'm very, very careful about, the who, the where, the what. And, I think what's great about this year in particular is that anything that is inauthentic in our worlds, people, places, and things is being exposed.
Oh, yes.
So whether, the narcissists, forget about it. This is the year. So anybody that's been looking for, validation, or you finally want to see karma, pop your popcorn and sit back. It's coming. Don't you worry about that. And on all fronts, personally, professionally, globally, all of that is happening. And it is really happening in the spiritual world. And this, oh my God, Kerie, I have to tell you, I love. So there's this one, you're going to love this spiritual person who definitely in the past, she has appeared to be all that and a bag of chips and probably some popcorn too. And I was, it was a wonderful experience, got to meet this person, and I thought, huh, I didn't quite feel what I thought I was going to feel. Like I was like waiting for the energy, right? Like I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there's going to be like a big gem of a nugget coming from this person to me. Not so much. She got some nuggets from me though. And I thought this was fascinating. And then as time went on, it started to unfold, and I thought something A plus B is not equaling C here.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, as we get closer to this year and the energies, this person starts spouting off about how this is the year. If you haven't learned from me, if you haven't practiced from me, you're not a real spiritual person, like blah, blah, blah. All the truth is going to come out this year. The, you know, the real, I don't want to say the real ones, but those of the true, of the higher vibration is going to come out versus those that, maybe you're not. But the
Yes.
way that she was leading it, I literally sat there, was cracking up, and I'm like, she literally doesn't even understand that she's actually warning people about herself in her messaging. And I was like blown away by it. So I love this year being the year, numerology number 9. Again, why I say it's so important to know everything.
Yes.
Know yourself, your numerology, your human design, all the jazz, your birth chart. You don't have to understand it, but allow someone to help you understand whom you are and embrace it. This is a number 9 year for the world. Holy sweet Jesus. So can imagine if you personally happen to be in a number 9 year.
I'm a number 9.
You have a number 9 year this year?
Well, no, I'm a number 9. My
Oh,
name is in numerology is a number 9. Yeah.
oh wow. Oh wow. So even that, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much change and disruption
Yes.
and getting through the storm to find the rainbow, looking for the lesson and the blessing in every moment
Yes.
right now. Head is on a, on a spiral looking around if you choose. Or you can sort of just sit back, I always say, and like watch the tornado from a distance. Like
Yes.
watch everything flying and go, okay, like we talked pre-recording,
Yeah.
I would say like, do you have skin in the game? Because if you don't, move along.
Yeah.
That's not where your energy is being called to. You may see something because you need to be aware of it in that moment and you may not know why. File it away. It'll come back. You'll understand it at some point in time, but keep moving. And this is the year. I mean, I love the energies of this year. I Now that I think about like everything, it makes sense like where I'm at in life and how things are transforming for me business wise and personal wise. And I'm not even in a number 9 year. I remember my last number 9 year just for me personally. Holy sweet Jesus. Like that was during the pandemic. That everything that could happen in a number 9 year darn well happened and some.
Wow.
All of it. Yeah. It was a great time.
Well, and it's interesting, we were talking about intuitive hits, and then you brought up the subject narcissism.
Mm.
I've shared this, I've just started coming out of the closet sharing this. I'm Angela Meyer. I wrote the book, The Undetected Narcissist. I did the podcast, The Undetected Narcissist, for 3 years. And I was guided by spirit to do that. I was literally guided by Archangel Gabriel to write that book because there's a painting that I hope I say her name right. Akia, the one that painted Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So, and God did, because I was ready to quit my business. I was really, after the whole narcissist experience, I was ready to quit my business. And God brought me a Catholic nun that had PTSD. And during that time, I had PTSD. And she's the one that convinced me not to give up my work. I mean, because she literally was like, no, God talks to you. And so she showed me that painting by that artist. And that one of Jesus didn't speak to me. The one that spoke to me was the one called The Light. And I would look at that. I bought the painting and I would look at it every day, every day, every day. And I started to see a face appear in the painting and it started to talk to me. And I told Sister Miriam about it, and she's like, oh my God, that's a sign from God. I have to see this painting. I have to come over and see it. And so she came over and she couldn't see the face. And I then said, no, this is how, let me point it out to you. And I said, this is the eyes, that's the nose, the mouth. She popped off my bed and said, oh my God, that's Archangel Gabriel. And I said to her, how do you know? And she said, God just told me. And I was like, you're correct. That's him. And it was really just fascinating because I was even one night lying in bed about to do this huge presentation, my first public speaking about narcissism, about how to communicate with difficult people. And my presentation was going to be an hour long. And 48 hours before that, I got a notice that it was only going to be a half an hour. And I was lying in bed going, God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And God said, you can do it in 8 minutes like that. And I was like, how? Are you serious? And it's like, yes. And I started downloading all this information, all this information. You're going to draw this, you're going to talk about this. And when I got the big poster boards and I showed people, this is what I was guided to talk about, everyone was like, oh my God, that is incredible. And I remember lying in bed one night hearing that, do you know you humans create narcissistic people? And I was like, what? What? You know, no, 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 no. And it was like, no, look it up. And when I did the research, it was 100% correct. And when I talked to a psychiatrist about it, I asked him that question, do we create them? He was like, bingo, how did you know? And I wasn't going to tell him, oh, that was an intuitive hit from up above, but that's where I was guided to write that book and do the podcast coming from a place of love, wisdom, compassion, and forgiveness. Because if we don't like those people, we need to stop creating them.
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's really fascinating that you went through all of that.
Yeah. And what was so bizarre, and I did a podcast about this, when I was literally there doing my speaking engagement, a man walked in that looked just like my son's father, exactly like him, the same built, hair color, facial hair, all of that. And I was like so scared, like, oh my God, how did he find me? And it was so cool because the woman that he came in with walked up to my table and I said, what's that guy's name? And she told me, and I was like, phew. But what was so cool is I stood my ground, and when I was driving home, God said to me, you passed the test. You can now be out in public and talk, and you don't have to be afraid anymore.
Right. That's such a beautiful blessing.
Yeah, and a lot of people would be afraid. Like one woman said to me, 'cause when I told her she was in the booth next to me, I'm like, oh my God, I think that's my ex. She's like, go run in the bathroom, go hide. And I was like, no, I'm going to stand my ground. I'm going to sit
Mm-hmm.
here. I'm being called to be here. This is what I'm going to do. But yeah,
Right.
and that took courage. That was stepping out of 3D human consciousness and into 4D and like, no, I have something to say. And what I'm doing is good for the world. It's not bad. I'm not bashing him or hating him. I'm helping people understand him. And maybe if he ever reads the book, he might understand himself.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. That's so powerful.
Yes. So, Jennifer, I'm really curious about your intuitive coaching because to me, that's the funnest thing to do. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
how that all works for you, like your approach, like how does that all work?
So for me, it actually came through Pilates. It was born through my Pilates. A Pilates session ultimately turned into an intuitive reading, which turned into intuitive coaching. So that's how it was born. And the name has changed over the years, whether it was mindset coaching or empowerment coaching, or based on what I was guided in that moment and who was supposed to be drawn to it, or who I was supposed to be drawing to it, because not everybody likes the word spiritual life coach or whatever it may
Yes.
be. Um, and so for me, generally, the people that I am attracting are empaths and highly sensitive people who have been through narcissistic abuse, toxic relationships, toxic families, have finally gotten to that stage where they want to find that empowerment within them. They
Yeah.
want to understand their gifts. They want to understand why they're here. They want to understand their mission. And so that's really where I help and hold someone's hand and guide them to whom they are and help them with the right tools so that they understand why they're here, what is their mission. How can we lean more into life and lean out of the chaos? Learning to heal from the PTSD, the CPTSD as well,
Yes.
all of that. So it varies based on the person, of course, but at the core of it, we start with, who are you? And it's interesting because it's just like if someone were to come to me for my Pilates practice, like you could come in and you could say, "Oh, my right hip hurts." And I'd be like, "Great, can you walk across the room and come back for a minute?" Great. And then suddenly I'm going to start with like your arm, and you're going to be like, "But I'm here for my hip." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." But your hip has taken everything out of alignment. And so I'm going to start at, one core area, which is going to help bring everything back into alignment. And that's my approach with the coaching. So I always know why someone's coming, why they've been attracted to me. And sometimes they don't know, but based on, I can put their puzzle piece together to understand. And then we start at the core of whom they are, and then as we grow out and they really begin to understand and embrace who they are, then different things fall into alignment. And as things fall into alignment, I also like to say things fall out of someone's life. So
Yes.
suddenly, the job that wasn't in alignment, now they have a new opportunity. The relationship that wasn't going so great, well, now that's over and someone new has come in. So it's this beautiful ripple effect that begins to happen throughout someone's life. And I just find it's so impactful, and it is such a gift. And I'm sure you understand this so much, to be along, to be a guide, to be an advisor, to
Yeah.
help someone on that path, to really shine that light, to be that beacon so that they can find the light within them.
Yes. And it's interesting you say that because when the Catholic nun, Sister Marian, came to see me, she couldn't understand why some of the nuns were so mean and so cruel to her. And I got the intuitive hit where I said, they're jealous and envious of you because you lived. You were you got married, you had a son, you raised that child, and then when the child got to a certain age, you joined, the monastery. They went in the beginning, and I was like, ooh, and they all have trauma. There's ones that hoard. It blows people away when they show me stuff. I'm like, there's one woman, her room is just so hoarded. And I started reading all the different nuns, and she was like, oh my gosh, how do you know this? And I said, because that's what, I'm being shown. And I said, so you need to develop love and compassion for these women because they wish deep down in their heart they got married maybe, or they had a family, or would their life be different if they made other choices? But they didn't. Some of these women escaped abusive relationships. They didn't want to get married. They had traumatic home life experience. They struggled with work and couldn't make a living. And yes. And when I broke it all down, she was like, yes, yes, yes. And I said, that's why a lot of people don't become nuns anymore because, um, it's just, it's not I hate to say this, it's not a way to escape
Mm-hmm.
reality and living. I said, if someone's really going to do it now, it's to be of service. It's a
Right.
calling. and and it was interesting because she would call me her spiritual advisor, and I'm just like, you can't say that around, you can't. And she was like, I know they would. She was like, they'd kick me out if they knew I was coming to you for spiritual advice. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, but all this spiritual advice is healing you, and it's helping you shift your consciousness to where you don't take it personal anymore. And you're not battling with these nuns. You realize why they're stuck, and you're this beam of light, and you're happy. And it is beautiful. I mean, I'd say that is my most favorite thing to do, is the intuitive, coaching, the spiritual coaching, because they know more about us than we know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a blessing. And I love that every day is a new day and you don't necessarily know what is coming via the
Yes.
client that's coming that day. It's wonderful.
Yes.
And for me, like I'm a life path number 5, like I need that. I need that balance between an adventure and the unknown and the practicality of things. And so it fits quite well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just I love being a part and being that spiritual advisor, being that mentor, being that beacon of light to watch other people find their light. I mean, there's nothing more
Yeah.
gratifying than that.
Yeah, my nickname for the longest time was the pinhole of light. And one woman was
That's
like,
crazy.
you're a lighthouse. You're a lighthouse. You're just,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's cool because, and I'm curious about this. There have been times where before someone even shows up, I'm getting intuitive hits about them. It's like they're chatting away, chatting away, chatting away. And so I can have this whole information load about this person and they show up and then I try to see, well, what are they going to say? I mean, to me that's always the interesting part is really being quiet and listening and hearing their story and figuring out how invested they are in their story and trying to, like you said, the puzzle pieces, trying to put the puzzle pieces, of this and this and this to support them and to be of service.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful blessing when you get to the point of life when you have your spiritual gifts and you work with them and you lean into them
Yeah.
to understand that they're a blessing. Because long before they're a blessing, you will think that they're a curse. I don't know many people that don't until you learn how to discern and work with your spirit guides and with your spirit team and with the gifts that you have. A lot of people are overwhelmed and can't
Yeah.
handle that. So while we're talking about how wonderful and amazing it is, Betty Lou could be like, well, I'm over here, talking, getting all these downloads and it's too much. And to those people, we say, that's the time to learn discernment. That's the time to
Yeah.
learn, what are your practices and how do you practice protecting your energy and being on
Yeah.
versus not being on, and that's okay too. And there are definitely times where, I have a girlfriend who we could be walking down the street and she could see you 2 blocks away and she will hunt you down to deliver a message. Now, I am not that person.
Yeah.
However, there have been times, like yesterday, I was on the phone with a gentleman from the car shop and he began to tell me about his dad that had passed away. And I'm like, oh, I was waiting for it, and
Yeah.
here comes his dad.
Yep.
And I'm waiting and I'm like, do you want me to say something to him? Do you have a message? And he was like, no. He's like, I just want him to feel my energy through you. And it was so beautiful and so impactful, so it doesn't always have to be that you're delivering, this wild, amazing message. Sometimes it's just looking at someone and smiling at them. That is the message that they needed in that moment.
Yeah. Or letting them know that there's signs and that they will communicate to you through signs if you ask for it. And that I always think is fascinating when you give them that little tidbit and then they get the sign and they're like, oh my God. I did happen that happened with one woman that I was coaching up in Canada. Her father passed away from a freak accident. And I told her, no, he's been trying to communicate with you through signs. And when she was, and half an hour later, she was vacuuming in her house and she picked up a magazine and a little pamphlet fell out. And she picked it up and she read it and she started crying. She literally took a picture of it. It was a pendant that said, I will never forget you. I'm always with you. I always love you. I mean, it was so beautiful. And she was like, yes, I got the sign. I got the message. And they do. They do. And I got to share this, and we'll try not to cry. Sometimes it can feel like a blessing and a curse because a really good friend of mine passed away. A really good friend of mine. And what was weird is he was here on a Monday and I started reading him. And I said something to him where I'm like, do you know you're slowly dying inside? Do you know that? And he said, yes. And I was talking to him because he was really struggling with work, his health, all kinds of stuff. And he wasn't feeling good. And I said, you need to go to the doctor, the urgent care now. You need to go. And he went, and they said he had gallstones, but he also, his white blood cell platelets were really low. It was at 30%, and it should have been at 100%. And they discharged him. And then on Thursday, he was supposed to show up and work for me. He's my son's disability support worker. And he sent me a picture where he woke up and there was blood in his mouth. And I was like, dude, go to the hospital now. And he didn't go. And that evening, I even texted him a message and I said, what did the doctor say? Well, Friday morning, he was rushed to ambulance to the hospital. We still don't know what happened to him. He had internal bleeding in the brain. And they did, when he arrived, his blood platelets were at 16%.
Oh
They
my God.
gave him 14 transfusions and couldn't even get it to 50%. And when they finally did surgery Saturday morning on his
Mm.
brain, he was a vegetable and they had to pull the plug. And I cried. I was just like, I knew it. And it's hard, when you have those intuitive hits that someone is going, and we can struggle with it where we don't want to really believe it. No, 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 no. But it's weird because in my room I have this painting by the same artist called Welcome, and to me that is the image of being up in heaven, and it was vibrating and it was pulsating in front of me, and he was in the room right next to me, and to me that meant it was calling someone home. It was calling someone home. And that's when I started reading him and telling him all this. It's like it just came right through. Tell him this. and and I've had to make, peace with that, because I mean, of course, it was really hard that, yeah, he actually did pass. Saturday, we went to his celebration of life.
Mm.
But the real nice thing is the day after he passed, when I woke up in the morning, the first thing I saw was his smiling, beaming face at me. And I knew he was okay, that he was in a better place, and that it was his time to go, and he was ready for it. And it's hard to say that. He was 37. So
So
hard to say
young.
that.
So young. So
Yeah.
young. Oh, I'm so sorry. But the blessing is that you did deliver the message and he
Yeah.
did heed it and he went to the
Yes.
doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and that is a blessing that he did hear it and he did heed it and he did go. And I have to forgive the doctor that, did not admit him to the hospital, because when he was there in the hospital on Friday, the doctor there was like, why wasn't he admitted on Monday? Why did they release him?
Yeah.
And so there are some times, like even with our own, health, I tell people, get a second opinion. Seriously, if your gut is telling you, that's your intuition, your gut is telling you, no, I need a second opinion, go get it. Do it, because yeah, it's really important. I wouldn't have kids if I didn't listen to someone's, intuitive hit advice about me when I was younger, because I got a really bad infection, and I didn't know how serious it was until I went to the doctor, and he was like, if you would have waited a week longer, you never would have had kids.
Wow.
And it's like, wow. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we need to really stop and go within and ask ourselves, what should I do? And listen to that guidance and listen to that, that intuition. Because when we second guess it, then you could regret it, because that was a blessing that you were being given.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it
Yeah.
it's a muscle just like anything else that needs to be trained.
Yes.
And the more that you work with it, the more that you will build the trust,
Yes.
more that you'll feel comfortable leaning into it. And between point A and point B, that's when I suggest journal. Journal
Yes.
down those signs. Journal it all. You can review it, you can go back and see what resonates, what you feel confident in yourself. And it's okay to, maybe get a validation from someone else, but truly you want to be listening to you the best.
Yes, that's a 100%. I fully agree with that. And that's why like one friend was asking me, like, there's moments where she was like, I don't get these intuitive hits. I don't get these intuitive hits. Why? And I said, when you're stuck in the levels of 3D human consciousness, they can't really talk to you. You have to think about it is when you calm yourself down and you're at neutrality, which is 250 in the state of human consciousness, that's when they can talk to you. But they can't communicate or get through when you're stuck in anger or hatred or or despair or any of that. You need to raise yourself up and realize that that's where your happiness is up here. It's not, down there. And a lot of
Mhm.
people would always say, well, why is desire bad? Why is desire bad? Because desire is in the area of 125. And I said, because that's greed and that's lust. And people are disposable. And it's where you're hungry for attention. You're yearning for sexual approval. There's vanity, enslavement, adrenaline junkies, unsatisfied cravings. You're always disappointed. When you're with someone, you want them to love you unconditionally and accept you and embrace you. You don't want someone that's going to superficially be your friend and then the next day ghost you. We see that all the time. And that's why I think more people are seeking an emotional connection first over the physical, because the physical one is the lust. And yes, we all have, needs, but you got to think about it like how you just said about, getting a massage and everything. You're letting someone in your space. And you should honor and protect your space in a way where this is your temple. It's not a dumpster, it's a
Mhm.
temple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to keep your energy yours, and you
Yeah.
want to be very careful whose energy you engage with.
Yes, you do. And that's why I tell people, be that quiet observer. Really become self-aware. Listen to what they're saying. Really, really listen and figure out, where they're at with money, where they're at with their relationship with their friends and family, with their career, because they'll tell you everything. They'll lay their cards out on the table if you really know how to listen.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, this has been such a gift. I am so excited. I've been literally giddy for weeks going, oh, I can't wait to talk to her. I can't wait to talk to her. Yeah. So where can people find you? Social media, website, YouTube? Tell everyone.
Best place to find me is my website, which is jenniferpilates.com. You head there, you will find everything from the YouTube channel to the podcast to the coaching to the readings to the Pilates, everything. So head right there to jenniferpilates.com. Feel free to send a message. I will be happy to continue this conversation and chat more, and happy to explore and be the beacon of light that you might need.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I will include all of your links and everything in the podcast. So thank you, Jennifer. Many
Thank you,
blessings to
Kerie.
you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great day.